My name is Bryant Fitts. I'm a lawyer located in Houston, Texas with the Fitts Law Firm. Today we're going to talk about what to do if you've been involved in an accident while in an Uber or Lyft or any other rideshare vehicle. Most importantly, we've got to figure out how to get the compensation you deserve and your medical bills paid. So what do you do if you've been involved in an Uber or Lyft accident? Number one, you've got to determine who's at fault. Was it the actual Uber driver or the Lyft driver, or was it some other person that hit them? That's very important for a number of reasons. Number one, the policy minimums for an ordinary driver are much lower than the policy minimums for an Uber or a Lyft driver. Uber or Lyft has a commercial policy which has much higher policy limits. So for you, the person that was injured, that means there's much more money there to compensate you for your damages, assuming you've been severely injured. So step one, we've got to figure out who's at fault. How do we do that? Well, if you've been involved in the accident, make sure you get the name and number of both drivers in the accident and insist that the police issue a police report when you're there. Now, if you've already been rushed off to the hospital, you may not be able to do that. But if anybody you know that was in the car with you, make sure they get all the contact information for all the drivers in the accident and insist that the police department that shows up issues a police report. The police report will be very, very important in determining who was at fault. Because if the Uber driver was at fault, you have a higher amount of insurance available there to compensate you for your injuries. Now, if the Uber driver was at fault, you can sue or make Uber accountable. Or if the other driver was at fault, you can hold their insurance company accountable. So that accident report is going to be very important to decide who is responsible for your compensation for your injuries and who's responsible for your medical bills. So once you've been involved in this accident, you need to immediately focus on getting the treatment you need to get you better. How do you do that? Well, you can call your primary care physician and report the injuries, and they may refer you to some doctor that specializes in automobile or vehicular accidents, because not all doctors do. And some doctors, once they find out there's the even most remote chance of litigation, they will refuse to treat you. And they do that because they don't have time to be deposed and they don't want to get involved in the litigation process. You can also look for a lawyer that handles car accidents and Uber claims, and they can help you find a list of doctors that don't mind treating people that have been in vehicular accidents. Typically, they can direct you to a few internet searches or provide you a list of doctors who could possibly treat you. Once you have treated and once you have gotten 100% better, it's time for you to seek compensation for your damages that were caused to you while you're in the Uber or Lyft vehicle. So how do you do that? A demand has to be drafted. And in order to draft a demand, you must order all your medical bills and your billing records. And you have to have the medical bills and the billing records so you can attach them to the demand. And the demand is going to outline all of the injuries you sustained as a result of this Uber or Lyft crash. If you've hired a lawyer, they're going to do that for you. If you haven't hired a lawyer, you can do it yourself. But typically, the other side, especially Uber or Lyft, is going to take you a lot more seriously if you have a lawyer. And they do that because they know if you don't have a lawyer, it's going to be very hard for you to file suit. Most people who don't have a lawyer won't file suit. But lawyers, if they're not able to get you a fair settlement, they will immediately file suit. So that demand is going to contain your medical bills. It's going to contain the pain and suffering you experienced, and it's going to outline the lost wages you may have experienced. Now, you've got to have proof of your pain and suffering, and you've got to have proof of your lost wages. So that may take a letter from your employer to document the work you missed, or in terms of pain and suffering, they're going to look to your medical records, to the pain you reported to your doctors, and you should also create a journal, a daily journal of the pain and the suffering you experienced as a result of the accident. This way, you can jog your memory when you're trying to help your lawyer draft this demand, so they will know what really happened to this person. Why are they really entitled to a large amount of money for pain and suffering? Unless you tell them or can explain the pain and suffering, it's very hard to get substantial recovery for pain and suffering. Now, once your demand has been submitted, you have to negotiate your demand. And if you've hired a lawyer, they're going to do this for you. If you're going to do it on your own, you need to plan for 30 or 45 days to go back and forth with the adjuster or the lawyer on the other side to try to reach a fair settlement. when you make your demand or your lawyer makes their demand, they're going to ask for more money than they think that you're going to receive. So there's some room for negotiation. The other side's going to expect to negotiate some. So whether it's you or your lawyer, the demand number is going to be higher than they anticipate you receiving, but it's going to be in the realm of a reasonable settlement so they don't scare off the other side. And the other side, you don't want the other side to think there's absolutely no possibility of settlement. If they think there's no possibility of settlement, they won't make very, what I would say, fair, constructive offers. Now, the big question is, how much should you ask for when you've been involved in an Uber or Lyft accident? And we have to go back to what we've been talking about in this entire video. Number one, you have to look at who's responsible and how responsible are they. An Uber driver has a higher duty to you because you're literally sitting in the back seat and they're essentially a common carrier under the law. And so if they injure you while you're in the car, they have, for lack of a better term, more responsibility than just an average person who makes a mistake. So if somebody hit your Uber driver, that claim is going to be of lower value than if your Uber driver hit somebody else while you were riding in the back of the Uber. So number one, we have to look at who was at fault and how at fault were they. So the more, when you've got a Uber driver who's driving you around and runs a red light and smashes into somebody else and injures you, you should be asking for a lot of money on that claim. Now, if you have a claim that's on the other side where your Uber driver is sitting in traffic and he gets rear-ended, that claim is going to have a lower value because there's really not much he could have done to stop that accident. You're really going to have to look for the person that hit your Uber driver from behind for the majority of your compensation. So in summary, you've got to look at who was at fault and how much they are at fault, and then we've got to look at your damages. Obviously, the more severely damaged are, the more money you want to ask for. So you have to look at all those factors. If you have any questions about that, please post them in the comment sections below, and we'll try to get back to you. Or if you'd like to ask us some questions in private, please call us at 1-800-99-FITS or contact us on our website contact form below.